for this institution and for this audience, the biggest issue of this tolerance relates to the field of education. Why are we so tolerant of this totally dysfunctional school system that's destroying our children all the time? We are now on to the third generation of young people post-apartheid that we are destroying, systematically destroying every day. You look at the strike. We have had 6 weeks of Soccer World Cup. Imagine soccer is more important than schooling. That's us. No, that is us. We are destroying the seed of our future. And then, as if that's not enough, we now have 3 weeks of a public sector strike. So 9 weeks, young people not in school. What do we expect? And there's no outrage. I haven't heard outrage around this issue. There's outrage because somebody has been, his life is at risk. Obviously, the sanctity of life is very important. But we are destroying generations. Not the first one that we are destroying. This is the third one we are destroying. And this dysfunctional school system guarantees and perpetuates the inequalities of race, class, gender, and geography. So when people say that transformation is not happening in South Africa because white people don't want to change, you should stop them and say, excuse me, the biggest contributor of failure to transform is the school system. What are you doing about it? And can we link hands and do something about it? I really want to appeal to my fellow alumni who are a little darker than me. Stop being cowards and allow people to use skin color as a refuge for real, serious issues that we need to address as a nation. And to the extent that you allow that to happen, to that extent, we will not have serious, open, and honest conversations. It's not just Mamphela who must be speaking in public places. You have a responsibility to speak and speak out. We should not be surprised by the high levels of brutal, violent crime. When you have 3 million young people not in school, not in training, not working, what do you expect? They are smart. The fact that they haven't passed school doesn't mean that they are not smart. They are smart, they are energetic, and they are very angry. So instead of just taking your cell phone, they'll also stab you just for good measure. This is a very serious issue. Therefore, giving, and I'm not talking here only about giving money, but giving of yourself and your commitment, is really about securing your future and the future of your children. I would like to challenge all of us sitting in this room and beyond, using Facebook and the other things, that the good things of life. We should commit as alumni of this great institution to urge our Vice Chancellor to lead the charge for us to partner with the Western Cape government. At least they look like they are serious in terms of the business of education. So we can make underperformance and dysfunctional schools history in the Western Cape. On the Cape Flats, everywhere. UCT cannot sustain a race-based admission system. It's absolutely unacceptable. But we are using it as Band-Aid for a problem which we need to actually root out. And I'm urging us to move with deliberate speed, to give our Vice Chancellor all the support so that he can stand up in the not too distant future and tell the world that he's casting away the Band-Aid and making sure that this institution welcomes every young person who is willing and able to perform. And in saying that, I rely on work done by Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote a book, which if you haven't read it, you should read it, called The Outliers. It's absolutely stunning. When I was in the US, people used to talk about the Asians having a special gene for mathematics. Now, I see my friend George is sitting there. It's total nonsense. There is no special gene for mathematics. But what there is the difference it makes for persistence and for devoting enough time to the business of learning and teaching. And he looked at how many days a country like Japan spends teaching and learning versus the US. Over 240 in Japan, over 210 in Korea, in the US, 108. I was very afraid that they'll ask us how many days we spend. But in addition, he looked at when you give Japanese kids a very complex set of problems to resolve, the American kids spent about just over 9 minutes. The Japanese were still at it 30 minutes later. They don't give up. They keep at it. And he ascribes that to the culture that comes from this reverence for learning, which is a very strong part of the Confucius philosophy, but also the fact that over generations, parents regard learning and excellent performance of their kids as one of the markers of being a good parent. And I am afraid that we just don't cut it. And so when you look at the performance on TIMSS, this International Mathematics and Science testing, the countries right at the top are all from the East minus Finland. Now, Finland used to be the absolute poorer of the poorest in Scandinavia, but now it's top of the pops for the same reason. So it's not about when you start being serious about excellence. It is the starting and the persistence. So that is the reason why I believe if we can commit that in the next 5 years we're not going to tolerate a single school failing or whatever, we can actually make it. President Obama is at the moment running a program in conjunction with the big billionaires in the US. We have our own billionaires here, believe you me. I know they stuff their money in little trusts so you can never see it, but it's there. The program runs on the basis of incentivizing states, in this case it will be provinces, that the national government contributes X and they contribute Y, and then the private sector and private givers contribute another bit. And this money is used to reward and to maintain high performance. So a slice goes to the school, a slice to the teachers, and so on. It's an amazing program that is turning around highly dysfunctional schools in that country. Why don't we learn from that, adapt it to our own needs here, and get going? So, Professor Nhlapo, I'm sure you'll do something about it. The second area I want to discuss is the fact of corporate social investment. I know many of you here are either in the corporate sector or have been in the corporate sector or they've got friends in the corporate sector. Now, one of our requirements of black economic empowerment is that you've got to devote a certain percentage of your profits to investing in socially responsible areas. it's a disgrace that after 10 years of that legislated investment, very little impact can be seen. I've spent the last week or so in the Eastern Cape. It's shocking because each corporate goes to put this little flag on a little roundabout, you know that, what do they call it, pump. Another one goes to put a little flag on one classroom. And it doesn't make sense. But they've ticked in the box. So we have developed a compliance culture around corporate social investment, instead of it being an opportunity for corporates, particularly the mining industry, because the Eastern Cape has not only been impoverished by out-migration to Cape Town and so on, but literally it has been mined of its human capital by the mining industry. And then they then discard the disabled people back to the Eastern Cape. You can walk everywhere. And of course, as they come back with HIV/AIDS, with TB, with mine typhus, the whole works. And yet, to get the mining industry to operate as an industry, to address the problems they have created in the Eastern Cape, it's very difficult. And now imagine the young people growing up there, both boys and girls, they have not had the benefit of a father figure because he was living in the mines. And then when he comes back, he's a cripple. So imagine the pain, the humiliation, and the dysfunctionality that is being created in the process of creating wealth for this country. And I'm not saying, I'm the last one to speak about the mining industry in a sense, because I sit on the Anglo board, and now, for my sins, I'm chairing Goldfields. But those who have worked with me know that those people will regret the day they brought me into the... But the reality is, we as citizens have to challenge those in the corporate sector. Because it's a scandal that we should have a province like the Eastern Cape that produced all these major leaders in our history, now as one of the worst performing provinces in the country. It still has the potential for greatness, but we've got to actually make it work. And the only way I believe we can make it work is not through little flags, is by walking together and working together.